You're looking, this is
First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday, starting around 1 p.m., going throughout the afternoon. And we get to have some longer conversations on here about things that are sometimes happening that you can go check out yourself. And this is what we're going to be discussing right now. So this is at the World Forestry Center at their Discovery Museum, a new exhibition. I want to give you the name. It's called Following Fire, A Resilient Forest / an Uncertain Future. And so what this documents is the September 2020 Holiday Farm Fire. That was 173,000 acres. I think if you were in the Northwest, you all remember September of 2020 and all of those fires that happened during that area right there, during that time frame. And this was one of those. And after this fire, there's a photographer, there's an ecologist. They both went in and documented that. And that's what part of this is covering what it is they documented, what you can see at this exhibition, and what it was all about, and why they did it. To answer all those questions, it's not me. We have them both joining us right now. We've got Fred Swanson and we've got David Paul Bayles. So Fred is a disturbance ecologist, which that name alone, I want to find out more about. But then we've also got David Paul Bayles, photographer, both of them joining us here. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us. And, to start off, I think, let's talk about this project. And I don't know who wants to go first, but what was it that drew you to this idea to begin with of going into a forest right after, or not right after, but after a fire like this to document what was going on?
Well, during the fire itself, we both live about 90 miles away in Corvallis and me outside of Corvallis. And so, ash was raining down all on our house. And Fred has been a long time associated with the H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest. And I have been for a short while. So we have been watching to see how much of the fire was affecting the H.J. Andrews. And we've been doing that for like 3 or 4 weeks, watching it, and developed a real curiosity of what was going on up there. And so when the fire was over, we began talking about how can we get up there and have a look. And so Fred sort of actually started that. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, I had a career as a Forest Service scientist specializing in disturbance events. So I've been chasing fires, floods, landslides, volcanic eruptions, and forest management practices in the Cascades and elsewhere in the Northwest throughout my career. So I'm fascinated by these events, and I'm eager to go and see what is happening and how the forests and rivers are responding.
Yeah, how that recovery happens, because that's, these fires, every forest fire is devastating to the area that it's at this particular time frame. There was so much going on there. So when you first went up there, when you were first allowed, I guess, how long after the fire was that? And what was your reaction? What were your feelings like when you went up there for the first time after this fire?
Yeah, it was, so Fred and his wife, Julia, went up. We were locked out of the Willamette National Forest. That meant also H.J. Andrews. So Fred and Julia drove up the canyon to see what they could see. And Fred sent me a few pictures, and I said, I want to get up there and see that area. So Fred and I went up after he made a connection with McKenzie River Trust to go look at their 2 of their property sites. And so driving up the canyon, that was during COVID, so we all drove separately, driving up the canyon and witnessing all of the homes that had burned, leaving nothing but a chimney and a tin roof, was pretty devastating to see. And so we finally got to our destination site and met with a McKenzie River Trust volunteer and went out onto the property and started looking around and exploring. And after a few hours, I realized I was incredibly affected by the beauty that I in no way expected to see. the forest in this blackened skeletal state was really new for me, and to see it up close and in detail that way. But as I acknowledged my own sense of seeing beauty, I realized I felt guilty thinking about all the homes that were lost that we witnessed driving up the canyon. And it was tough to wrestle with that acknowledgement of actually it's really quite beautiful with, well, for a lot of people, it isn't beautiful at all. And so I talked to Fred, and he was having many of the same feelings. And so that's kind of how the project started, was we really felt connected with it in that way, and in that challenging way.
And that juxtaposition between the two. So you're mentioning, the buildings, and I guess, Fred, from your standpoint, from the ecological standpoint, it sounds like you were wrestling with those two different sides as well, of seeing some of the beauty of what was coming back from the forest fire.
Exactly. And part of the context for me was having studied the fire history of Western Oregon since the 1970s, based on counting tree rings on stumps and interpreting fire history. So one reaction was, reminded me of the Japanese poem. I'd always thought this day would come, but yesterday I did not know that it would be today. So there was an element of surprise, but also expectation. And it was also some shock to see this local landscape that I was so familiar with be so transformed. And, others in our research community gave inquiry based at the Andrews Experimental Forest, which includes artists, writers such as David. We all were experiencing shock, grief, stages of grief, for example. And but we were also drawn in. Our curiosity, held us to go and document what was happening on the land.
And we were just showing a couple of clips there from Fire Plus Bird Films too, of documenting some of what you were doing. And, going into this, did you know you were going to be doing this for over a number of years? Did you have plans for this kind of exhibition once you went up there? Or was this, it started off with curiosity and then eventually turned into this?
Oh man, I want to talk about curiosity, because yes, curiosity is at the very heart of this project. And for me, I learned that curiosity is at the heart of what scientists do as well. As a creative person, absolutely, it's about being curious. And so for me, to be in this skeletal state forest and be able to just ask with abandon, Fred, look at this over here, look at this shape, look at this thing, what's going on here, And he would get right down and be just as curious with me. And no question was too silly or dumb. And so it has been an incredible experience to go through this process of deepening our shared curiosity with this guy.
So we share personal histories of being deeply engaged with forests throughout our adult lives. David was a logger in the Sierras for 4 summers to put himself through photo school. And I've been a scientist engaged in the forest for more than 50 years. And so we bring differences in perspective, though this shared instinct of curiosity. David, as a visual creative person, is attentive to color and forms. And my work in the science world is to make natural history interpretations of the physical and biological processes that have shaped the forest up to today, that is forest history. And we can read forest history back millennia, but also use that information to think about where the forest is likely to be going in the future. So it's been really cool, fascinating, exciting to bring these instincts together and be following the forest as it teaches us constantly over time.
I think this is just really cool, seeing these two unique perspectives that you have there. I will say, just for the camera back shot, I wanted to pull up a picture of a national forest. We have Mount Hood National Forest there, obviously in a little bit of a different state than what we were looking at for the forest where you were at. And there were some people skiing up there. So you might see them in the bottom corner of the screen, which is good. They're out there enjoying the forests. For the two of you, to have both of these viewpoints and bring both of these to this project, what is it that you would like people who come to this exhibition to take away? Because obviously fires can be very terrifying. That's kind of how a lot of people look at them, the wildfires that we've had, but you're seeing the beauty in it. What would you like them to take away from this exhibit?
Well, the exhibit offers a lot in that I utilized 4 distinct photographic approaches to create this exhibition. 3 of them are straight documentary approaches. So I photographed the landscape. But in addition to that, we discovered early on these typologies, these groups of similar things grouped around a visual shape or process. And so we now to date have 18 different typologies grouped into revealed by fire, created by fire, biological responses to fire. So that's one way of, or 2 ways of going through the exhibition. And I'll let Fred talk about the chrono sequence. That is really his part, initiation. And then the last part for me was a fine art or personal expression where I deviated from straight documentary work to allow these black and white images to express my emotions, alter the reality of the scene just a little bit in order to express what I felt. And then the 4th approach was chrono sequence.
Yeah, Fred. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, we, at the Andrews Experimental Forest, managed jointly by Forest Service and Oregon State University, which is their experimental forest, 16,000 acres up the McKenzie River. We've been studying forest and river ecosystems since 1948, and we've engaged artists, creative writers, theologians, and others on the arts and humanities side to help tell stories from the forest. This is an example of one of these art science interface projects. We're really keen to have the public gain a nuanced view of forests and the resilience. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That was like the bridge between the Thomas Guide and Google Maps.
Okay, we lost a little bit of the audio on this end. I'm sorry about that, Fred. But talking about that, the nuance between the two and getting more of a viewpoint, it sounds like it's what you're saying, what the audience can actually get in there and see. And that's an important thing. I think, David, just one more question for you. Going to that to the beauty side, back to that part. What do you think is the most important thing that someone should take away from coming to see this and seeing some of that photography that's there, documenting what you saw? What would you like them to see when they go there?
Well, see and feel absolutely the resilience, because resilience in this age of increasing frequency and severity of fires, we all need resilience. We all need, fire in the West is no longer just affecting those whose homes have burned. We all breathe the smoke all summer. We're all affected by these fires in a wide variety of ways. And so to see the beauty early on, to see the green and the immense vegetation come forth and the small trees now coming up, to feel that resilience and hold that in their hearts and know that it's something that we can learn from the forest and use resilience in that way in our own lives. Because along with these fires, we're all facing uncertainty. We know that the increased frequency and severity is affecting us all, and it's an uncertain future for us in that regard. So holding that resilience especially, I think, is the biggest thing to take away. It's good for all of us.
I love that. I mean, as you mentioned, that's something that, it affects so much. It's they happen so much more, than they were, and it's part of our lives. And so understanding that from all those perspectives, I think it's just really great, and that's what this does exhibit. And I want to make sure that everybody knows too. So just for some key points there for coming out to see it at the World Forestry Center. So this is part of the Discovery Museum. This exhibit is included with your museum admission. So $5 for you, $7 seniors, $8 adult. And it's open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. starting November 20th. So people can go there and go to the website, obviously, and find out more information about coming to see the center in general, but also to see this particular exhibit. Anything else that I left out that you think is important for people to know? I really just thank both of you for having some time to talk about this.
Sure. I would just notice that we haven't exactly picked the date yet, but I think it's going to be sometime in late January. Fred and I will be at the World Forestry Center giving an artist talk. You can follow their social media or check their website periodically to see the posting of that exact date. But we'd love to see you and answer your questions.
I would just add that it's important to be attentive to the great variety of fire regimes across our region. And the story on the east side, the hot, dry east side with frequent fire, has some very important differences from those on the wet west side where we're working. So geographic nuancing is important. And we do want to thank you, Greg, for having us on the show. We'd like to thank the McKenzie River Trust for permission to conduct this project on their lands.
May I sneak in one more thing?
Yeah.
So this project is not complete. We are planning, in keeping with many science projects at the Andrews, some of which are slated to last 200 years. When we no longer can continue this documentation of a recovering forest, we are planning to turn it over to another photographer science team to continue this work and build a database so that we could, into the future, perhaps have a 100-year documentation of the recovery of a forest, which I think is a really special thing.
That's really great. Yeah, and can be of so much value to be able to have that kind of footage and photography and knowing, what's happening and how it's coming back. That's great. So this is a continuing project, but people can see it where it's at right now by going down there to the World Forestry Center. And thank you both for having some time to talk to me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And for everybody watching, we are live. We're going to take a break here, but I just want to remind you that we are live here every weekday starting around 1 p.m., going throughout the afternoon. We get to have longer conversations, go a little more in depth with some things that are happening in the world. And sometimes these are interviews, and sometimes these are deeper dives on news stories you may see elsewhere on our other shows. But we do cover a lot. You can check them all out at the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, under the Fox 12 Now tab at kptv.com, under the Fox 12 Now tab, or of course on our Fox 12 Oregon app. So lots of places to see that and share these segments and get the word out about lots of different things. So I thank you for joining us. We will sign